But hard on whom? That was the question. And Mr. Blister, the lawyer, wasn't getting an answer. He would have liked an answer. When parties are interested in unprepossessing land, it might pay for smaller parties to buy up any neighbouring plots, just in case the party of the first part had heard something, possibly at a party. But it was hard to see what there was to know. He gave the woman on the other side of his desk a suitably concerned smile. You understand, Miss Dearheart, that this area is subject to dwarf mining law? That means all metals and metal ore are owned by the Low King of the Dwarfs. You will have to pay him a considerable royalty on any that you remove. Not that there will be any, I'm bound to say. It is said to be sand and silt all the way down, and apparently it is a very long way down. He waited for any kind of reaction from the woman opposite, but she just stared at him. Blue smoke from her cigarette spiraled towards the office ceiling. Then there is the matter of antiquities, said the lawyer, watching as much of her expression as could be seen through the haze. The Low King has decreed that all jewellery, armour, ancient items classified as devices, weaponry, pots, scrolls, or bones extracted by you from the land in question will also be subject to a tax or confiscation. Miss Dearheart paused, as if to compare the litany against an internal list, stubbed out her cigarette, and said, Is there any reason to believe that there are any of these things there? None whatsoever, said the lawyer with a wry smile. Everyone knows that we're dealing with a barren waste, but the king is insuring against what everyone knows being wrong. It so often is. He is asking a lot of money for a very short lease, which you are willing to pay. This makes dwarfs nervous, you see. It's very unusual for a dwarf to part with land, even for a few years. I gather he needs the money because of all this Coombe Valley business. I'm paying the sum demanded. Quite so, but will he honour the contract? To the letter, that at least is certain. Dwarfs are sticklers in such matters. All you need to do is sign and, regrettably, pay. Miss Dearheart reached into her bag and placed a thick sheet of paper on the table. This is a banker's note for $5,000 drawn on the Royal Bank of Ankh-Morporks. The lawyer smiled. A name to trust, he said, and added, traditionally, at least. Do sign where I've put the crosses, will you? He watched carefully as she signed, and she got the impression he was holding his breath. There, she said, pushing the contract across the desk. Perhaps you could assuage my curiosity, madam, he said, since the ink is drying on the lease. Miss Dearheart glanced around the room as if the heavy old bookcases concealed a multitude of ears. Can you keep a secret, Mr. Blister? Oh, indeed, madam, indeed. She looked around conspiratorially. Even so, this should be said quietly, she hissed. He nodded hopefully, leaned forward, and for the first time for many years felt a woman's breath in his ear. So can I, she said. That was nearly 3 weeks ago. Some of the things you could learn up a drainpipe at night were surprising. For example, people paid attention to small sounds, the click of a window catch, the clink of a lockpick, more than they did to big sounds, like a brick falling into the street, or even, for this was, after all, Ankh-Morporks, a scream. These were loud sounds which were therefore public sounds, which in turn meant they were everyone's problem, and therefore not mine. But small sounds were nearby and suggested such things as stealth betrayed, and so were pressing and personal. Therefore, he tried not to make little noises. Below him, the coachyard of the central post office buzzed like an overturned hive. They'd got the turntable working really well now. The overnight coaches were arriving, and the new Uberwald flyer was gleaming in the lamplight. Everything was going right, which was, to the nighttime clock.